When there are strong integration capabilities between different security tools, you do get a 1 + 1 = 3 outcome. For example, at the Southport school, they utilize Palo Alto network firewalls, which have tight integration with Aruba ClearPass and Mimecast, sharing data on devices and user status. Richard, why do visibility and authentication feature so prominently in your strategy here at the Southport School?
Well, identity is the new perimeter, isn't it? It's really, really critical to any sort of security stack that you have the correct identification. The ASD Essential 8, right? 2FA, multi-factor authentication's really a big part of that maturity model. We pride ourselves on the fact that we can genuinely say we know every device that's on a network, everything has to be authenticated. And it's tricky because we're a big boarding school and a lot of residents that live here on site and lots of different devices that connect to our network. So we're very highly segmented and everything's identified and authenticated.
Identity in this case isn't just about who the individual is, but it's also the device that they're using and making sure that you're able to tie the two together, I suspect, eh?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. We need to ensure that devices that are on a network, we can match those IP addresses to the users. That information's fed into our logging system. A logging system that is analysed by our wellbeing system, and it's all part of that ecosystem that provides sort of safe, secure internet access for our entire community, really.
Yeah, it's really interesting how you've brought it all together. Can you share some of the products that you use here?
Yeah, so it's Aruba wireless networking. We have really adopted the Aruba Zero Trust model. We essentially, the way that we deploy our BYD environment, it's each network, each year level segmented into their own network. They're pretty much classified as breach already. That's how we treat them. And that's how we treat that network traffic. It's just breach traffic. It's tunneled through our mobility controllers, and a pretty significant rule set and policies are applied. Added to Onyx on every edge port. That really helps us to prevent unauthorized devices from connection to the network, either wirelessly or physically as well, which is critical when you're at about 990 switches across 2 campuses. It's a lot to control, and trying to do it with a pretty lean team. Firewalls, it's Palo Alto's. So we use the integration between the Aruba and Palo, and then ClearPass for our radius as well for authentication. Onboarding is handled by a product called SecureW2 that does our certificates and certificate authentication for our students, and that allows us to put our root certificate on their devices. That's really key to get that visibility in the traffic. Everything's encrypted these days, so it allows us to conduct a packet inspection, SSL decryption, and really identify what's happening in some of those applications that we do allow through the firewall. Microsoft is definitely part of our stack here. Azure AD, we have full federated authentication. All of our staff devices are Azure AD joined, and Autopilot is what we use for deployment. And yeah, Microsoft, we actually have all our parent accounts in our Active Directory as well as in our Azure AD, so we're looking to authenticate them. We use the personal email addresses as a universal principal name in AD, and it allows us to then provide access to our parents and also to our casual staff as well. But our staff authentication is all handled with multi-factors as well.
I understand you use Microsoft Defender for Endpoint on all the systems at the school. Can you talk a little bit more about the endpoint protection, as it's obviously another big challenge for the school?
Yeah, so like I said, BYD from years 4 to 12, so we isolate them off, and they're basically considered breach. When it comes to our own devices, it's Microsoft Endpoint that's running on all those devices. It just gives us visibility into current known vulnerabilities, patch levels. It also is our endpoint detection response as well for any malicious code that's run on those endpoints.
So you've adopted a multi-vendor approach. How much weight do you put on how those tools interact and share data?
It's critical. It's a reference architecture. We ensure that when we look to different vendors and different products. They do have interoperability. And we need visibility across that whole sort of security stack and networking stack as well. One of the products that is key for us is ClearPass, especially when considering identity.
You have an interesting solution around student well-being. Can you talk us through this a little bit?
Yeah, so we analyze all our traffic, our internet traffic through SSL decryption. It allows us a lot more visibility into what the students are using the internet for. That information that we capture is sent to a product we use called Sesiam, or Assure by Sesiam. It's AI driven, it looks at word lists, it generates reports for our pastoral human and wellbeing team as well. It just is part of our holistic vision for student wellbeing and internet safety as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I can imagine it's a real challenging problem for any school to have to deal with.
Yeah, it is. It is. 16 years ago, we really didn't have these kind of problems. We didn't have social media back then. Enterprise Wi-Fi wasn't really a huge thing either. So as we've introduced these great technologies, which helps with the learning and teaching, we've also had all these new challenges. Parents are concerned and they're trying to steer their children in the right direction. We have 1,700 students, which as children, we're trying to steer in the right direction. There's a technology aspect to it, but there's also a human side to it as well. Yeah. And I think that the communication needs to be maintained with the students, just around their safe internet use.
Yeah, it's interesting. You get a really strong platform there with the Palo Alto Network, the ClearPass, the Microsoft solutions that you have, and then putting this over the top of it really does help to provide a very safe environment for the students.
Yeah.